we now are on the second branch of government, which is the executive department. When you speak of the executive department, we refer to the office of the president. Alongside that office is the vice president's office. And by virtue of the principle of qualified political agency, we also include the different agencies and departments under the office of the president. Now, what qualifies one to be president? President is required under the Constitution to be a natural born citizen. This is among those positions which is required specifically of one to be natural born. Also, he must be a registered voter in the Philippines and is able to read and write. So the qualification of literacy is at its minimum. He must be 40 years of age on the day of the election, not on the day of the filing of the certificate of the candidacy. And the candidate for presidency must be a resident of the Philippines for at least 10 years immediately following the election. Now, each president only has a fairly long term of 6 years. The 6-year term begins on the 30th day of June, next following the day of the election, and ends on the same date 6 years thereafter. Could a president be re-elected? No. No president is eligible for re-election. The Constitution is categorically clear on that. And that a person who has succeeded as president and has served for more than 4 years cannot anymore be qualified for the election for the same office at any time. So notice that there is the categorical description of declaration in the Constitution that no president shall be eligible for re-election. No? Together with that is the categorical restriction also that if you have served for more than 4 years after you have succeeded the president, maybe because you were vice president and then you succeeded the president who has retired, has been deceased, you can no longer run for re-election or for election, not re-election but election. Take the case of Cory, or of Erap, and Arroyo. Well, Cory served for a long time. She did not serve under the 87 Constitution per se because her election was by virtue of the voice of the people, according to the case of Lawyers League versus Kino. Come 1992, the first time we had an election for president after the enactment of after the ratification of the people of the 1987 Constitution, we had Fidel V. Ramos, who served for the duration of his 6-year term, was followed by Erap, who only served half his term because he was succeeded by his vice president midterm because of the EDSA dos. Now, Arroyo here, the vice president, did not serve for more than 4 years. That is why Arroyo was qualified to run for president up against, among others, subsequently who became the president, Pinoy, Benigno Aquino Jr. Benigno Aquino Jr. was succeeded by Duterte, and Duterte was succeeded by BBM. So, if you look at this timeline of terms, Arroyo's term was his first term was a mere continuation of Erap's term. But because she did not take office for more than 4 years, she was qualified to run for re-election. And her term ended in 2010. It began when Erap was removed from office in 2001. Now, Erap already was elected for president once, and the Constitution clearly says that no president who has been elected can be eligible for re-election. But here comes, surprisingly, the case of Pormiento versus Estrada. Estrada, who was just been recently removed from office or resigned from office following EDSA dos, ran for office, I think sometime in 2010, of course, in 2010. But while his case was being determined, because there was a question if whether or not he could still run for re-election following his removal from office earlier on. In the interim, Erap did not win the election in 2010. We knew for a fact that it was Pinoy who won. with the Vice President, Judge Omar Binay, who was the running mate of ERAP, I think. No? Pinoy was running alongside Mar Rojas then, who also did not make it, of course. So this decision in Pormiento versus Estrada tells us that the question on whether ERAP could run for office for re-election is already moot and academic because ERAP did not win the election. But for me, the Supreme Court could have decided on this matter because for its symbolic function to simply educate the bench and the bar, function of judicial review, so that the same occurrence will not happen again. But again, the Constitution is clear. No president who has been elected is eligible for re-election. What about the case of Duterte? There was a conspiracy theory there before that Duterte strategized with Sara. Of course, this did not came to run as her running mate when Sara was eyed for the presidency itself. Can an elected president run for vice president? In the case of Duterte, can already the president, then could he run for vice president together with Sara Duterte? Constitution, remember, says that the president and the vice president shall be elected by the direct vote of the people for a term of 6 years, which shall begin at noon on the 30th day of June following the day of the election and shall end at noon on the same date 6 years hereafter. And this is the crucial provision. The president shall not be eligible for re-election. So we are talking about re-election. He was already president. He wants, what if he runs for vice president? Can that be possible? There are several schools of thought. The first one is that he may not run because according to the provision, the restriction belongs in the same paragraph saying that the president and the vice president shall not be eligible for re-election. He may not run because the term any prior to re-election is found in the same paragraph with the president and the vice president being mentioned. So both are not, are covered by the restriction. But for me, that is totally absurd. But oppositors to the move wants to assert this this argument. The more sound arguments are as follows. He may run because if you follow verba legis, re-election refers to the election for the same office. The office of the vice president is a different office from the president. Functions of both are different. While the vice president succeeds the president, definitely her position is to the president, no? So verba legis, re-election is not being elected for the same office. For a president, under this argument, could run for vice president, a totally different office. But if you follow ratio legis, the president may not run for vice president because the very ill that the 1987 Constitution wants to cure is the president holding on to his office for a long time. Because, well, with the successional authority of or obligation of the vice president, the president could simply take over the vice president. The vice president could simply take over the office of the president if suddenly the president resigns as a matter of a conspiracy between them, no? But he may not run because, yun nga, sabi ng constitution natin, ng ating framers, ito yung gusto nila. We have learned from the martial law, the Marcos era, that Marcos ruled for, a very long period, no? 20 years of dictatorship, and that's an evil that the Constitution wants to avoid. So the theory then was, kasi nga, baka nga tumakbo si Duterte from vice president as vice president, and suddenly they have an agreement with Sara that Sara will resign or step down so that he again can assume office as the president. Step up, no? But it says here, if you look at this, no person who has succeeded as president and shall have served for more than 4 years shall be qualified for election. So what if yun nga ang mangyayari, hindi naman nangyari, pero what if Duterte ran for office again for vice president? He already served the full term of 6 years. But he was not elected. He is not going to be elected for vice president. He succeeds the presidency as vice president by a matter of consequence of being the vice president theoretically. No? So he could serve pala if you look at this verbal legis. No? Now, our presidents elected? By a direct vote of the people unless otherwise provided by law. The election for the pres and the vice pres shall be held on the second Monday of May. Well, there's a special election if the vacancy offices of the president and the vice president altogether. Because if it's only the office of the president that is vacated, the vice president takes over. And if it's the office of the vice president that is vacated, then the president elects or appoints from nominates from among the members of Congress who will be the vice president. So there's only a special election if both offices are vacated. There is also a so-called electoral tribunal for the office of the president. For the Congress, they have the HRET and the SET. For the executive department, there is the so-called PET, Presidential Electoral Tribunal. It is the Supreme Court sitting en banc that shall act as Presidential Electoral Tribunal, who shall resolve cases relating to elections, returns, and qualifications of the president and the vice. Now, what is the jurisdiction of the Electoral Tribunal, the Presidential Electoral Tribunal? It's not for candidates, but for those who have already been elected. No? So, does not include cases on the matters of the qualifications of the candidate, but on the election, the returns, and the qualifications of the president who has already been elected. No? The jurisdiction of the Supreme Court would not include cases directly brought before it questioning the qualifications of a candidate. Okay? So just for the president and the vice president, but not for the candidates. Oath of affirmation. Notice that this is among the oaths that indicate justice, the word justice. Okay? I do solemnly swear or affirm for those religions or those who belong to a religion that disallows their members to swear that I will faithfully and conscientiously fulfill my duties as president or vice president, as the case may be, of the Philippines, preserve and defend the Constitution, execute its laws, do justice to every man, and consecrate myself to the service of the nation. So help me God. So this is the oath that is taken by the president in order for him to qualify for office. So what are the privileges of being president? First, the president, according to the Constitution, shall have an official residence. The official residence is now written in the Constitution to be Malacanang. It's not written in the Constitution which residence, but there shall be an official residence. If you look at the different presidents from prior to Duterte and now, they have taken different official residences. For Aquino, it was the Arlegui Mansion. For FDR, it's also the Arlegui Mansion. But both Aquino and FDR took office in Malacanang, with Aquino taking office at the Premier Guest House. It's a statement for Aquino, and of course by way of respect, perhaps, no, for FDR, because they only want to hold office in Malacanang. Aquino nga sa Premier Guest House, perhaps because it's a statement for her on what Malacanang then represented. No, maybe there's an, I do not know, but we can only speculate. But she has her reasons. No, you have Estrada with the residence. His residence is at the Premier Guest House, GMA. Okay, at Bonifacio Hall. That's the Malacanang Guest House also. And Pinoy, Bahay Pangarap, which is across the Pasig River in Malacanang. Well, Digong usually comes to Davao City. Speaking about the Arlegui Mansion was eventually returned to its owners in the case of Hidalgo. No? So it was among the testaments of Aquino who made use of the Arlegui Mansion, one of the, I think, sequestered properties during her time. Salary, the president and the vice president their salary shall be determined by law. They may be increased but not decreased during their term. But the increase of the salary of the vice president does not also take during his term. Uh, Sorry, they may not, that the increase may not happen during their tenure because the president, remember, takes part in the signing of the law that gives increase to that allows increase for his salaries, no. It's by law. Congress increases salaries and the president approves a law. So his increase does not take effect during his term. So um, you have the executive privilege. This is the right of the president and high-level executive branch of officers to withhold information from Congress and the courts, and ultimately the public. This is the power of the president to keep secrets, to withhold information from the public. Even the courts and Congress cannot compel the president to divulge executive privilege or any of his cabinet members. According to the case of Senate versus Ermita, a president and those who assist him must be free to explore alternatives in the process of shaping policies and in making decisions, and to do so in a way many would be unwilling to express except privately. So these are the considerations justifying a presumptive privilege for the presidential communications. It's fundamental to the operation of government, especially when matters of national security are involved. In fact, in the case of Akbayan versus Aquino, negotiations of heads of the executive department, the presidents or whoever heads the executive department of other nations, when they negotiate to come up with a treaty or an agreement, an international agreement or treaty, the negotiations, the transcript of the negotiations are privileged because if it's made public, leaders of nations would be hesitant in coming to an agreement with the Philippines because they come to the negotiation table as vulnerable. They share secrets. They make known to their allies their weaknesses and their strengths. Such information, if made public, will be detrimental to the performance of their individual functions. So, for a presidential a communication privilege to exist, these are the elements on your screen. It's well, practically these are information that are not available elsewhere. Okay, and the sharing of information is really part of your function and it's a part of your routine. No? So these are his prohibitions. The president and the vice president, they shall not hold any other office or employment during their tenure. This includes the members of their cabinets and their deputies or assistants, unless otherwise provided for by law. So they are not allowed to hold any other office during the 6-year period. No, they as far as the members of the cabinet, they have the same restrictions, but for the members of the cabinet, including, well, of course, including Sara or the vice president, could hold office as vice president, as a secretary of education, for example. But for appointive officials, you are not allowed from any other office to hold any other office, except if allowed by law or by your ex officio functions. No? So the reason for that is so that the member of the executive department will not be spreading himself too thinly. Because if maximum benefits are to be derived from a department's ability and expertise, he should be allowed to attend to his duties and responsibilities without distinction of other government offices or employment, without the distraction of other governmental offices or employment. The prohibition must not, however, be construed as applying to ex officio capacity. Okay, so if the function is ex officio, you can function as well, no? Together with your main function. No? This case of Bitonio versus COA, read this case, together with this case of Luchico and COA. Well, in these cases of Bitonio and Luchico, the representatives of the heads of their offices were seeking compensation for their membership in certain boards. No, well, in one case, in the case of Bitonio, Philippine Economic Zone Authority, The case of Cruz and Luchico, the NHA board, they were asking for compensation. According to the Supreme Court, if it's ex officio function of your principal, meaning that department secretary that supposedly should be there, does not receive additional compensation. So if your boss, if your superior is not receiving additional compensation, that he should really be the principal there, you as the representative could also not receive such compensation, because the function that you assumed is an ex officio function of your department head. So exceptions to the prohibition on holding additional positions, the VP may be appointed as member of the cabinet. Remember, the law says may be appointed. So it may be possible that the vice president will not be appointed by the president. President or the members of the Judicial and Bar Council as members, and included is a cabinet member who is the Secretary of Justice. So that's an ex officio function, an example. They shall not also hold during their tenure, directly or indirectly, any practice of any profession. If you're a lawyer or economist, you're not allowed to practice any profession or participate in any business or be financially interested in any contract with any franchise or privilege granted by the government. This is simple. Aside from to not assert their influence, no? This is not to contaminate the office also. No? But primarily, it is a delicadeza, no? And to not allow the president to have undue influence over the courts, their profession, or in business. No? As to the spouse and the relatives by consanguinity or affinity within the fourth civil degree of the president, during their tenure, they shall not be appointed as members of the Constitutional Commission, COMELEC, Civil Service. They may not be appointed to the office of the Ombudsman as secretaries, undersecretaries, chairman, or heads of the bureaus and offices, including GOCCs and their subsidiaries. Succession. This is the role of succession and the role of the vice president when the president cannot anymore function. But the rules of succession are different when the term is just beginning and when the term is already on its progression. So succession happens, what's the rule? When the vice president and the president are elected in a regular election, but the elected president fails to qualify, meaning the president may not have yet taken his oath of office. So it's the vice president who takes over, presuming that the vice president also has taken her oath or his oath. Okay? If a president shall not have been chosen, for example, when the tie has yet to be broken, or when there's something wrong with the PCOS machines, for example, still the vice president takes over until a president has been chosen and has qualified. But if at the beginning of the term, both the president-elect shall have died, if at the beginning of the term, not both, but the president shall have died or shall have become permanently disabled, the vice president now becomes president, not anymore as a temporary, in a temporary capacity, but now he becomes the vice president, not the person who has the next number of votes, but it's now the vice president, the successor. That's in the case of death or permanent disability at the beginning of the term. But if at the beginning of the term, the president and the vice president both shall not have been chosen or qualified, or both have died or become incapacitated, it's the president of the Senate, and in case his inability, the Speaker of the House, who shall act as president until the president and the vice president shall have been qualified. So, or have been elected, if it's both of them have died or qualified, if the tie is not yet broken for both or whatever, it's an unusual instance, circumstance. If during the term, in case of the vacancy of the office of the president, the vice president takes over as a matter of succession. Okay? But in case of the vacancy in both the functions of the president and the vice president, President of the Senate, and in case of his inability, the Speaker of the House shall act until the President or Vice President shall have been elected and qualified. Notice here that there is such a thing as acting President, but there is no mention of an acting Vice President. Only the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House takes the office of the President in some instances, but there is nobody who acts as Vice President because there is no need. Because if the Vice President is incapacitated, then the President shall nominate only members from the members of Congress who shall take over. But if it's a member of if it's the president, if it's the Vice President, or sorry, if it's the President who is unable to function or resigned, there's that mechanism naman, the Vice President can take over. But for the Vice President, there is no need. Anyway, the government can still function without the Vice President. In fact, if he has an administrative post, no, a department which a cabinet which office position or post which may be given, the same may be easily replaced by the sitting president, no, in case of the Vice President's death or incapacity. Okay.